Canon's found a way to solve one of the biggest problems in photography, making a zoom lens that's also small, light, and super sharp. So is Canon working on a more affordable version of the RF 100 to 500mm, or perhaps the RF 200 to 600mm, or even the RF 150 to 600mm f4.5 to 7.1, aimed to take on Sigma's lens? Well, I'll break it down for you step by step, but if you're serious about staying ahead of the latest camera gear, hit the subscribe button. It not only helps this channel grow, but it keeps you in the loop. In Canon's patent application, JP 2025-068046, filed on June 1, 2023, and published April 24, 2025, Canon claims to provide a zoom lens which has a high optical performance, a long focal length, a small size, and is also lightweight. Zoom lenses with a long reach are amazing. They allow us to get close, but they are big, heavy, and hard to travel with. And while pros consider this par for the course, well, it's not so appealing for everybody else. Canon's goal with 2025-068046 is to make a lens with a long focal length that is small, lightweight, but also delivers good image quality across the zoom range. So, you might be asking, how is Canon planning on doing this? And what focal lengths could we expect to see? A 150 to 600mm, a 200 to 600, or a more affordable version of the 100 to 500mm? Making a long zoom lens like Canon's very popular 100 to 500mm, that's also small, lightweight, and has good resolution, or I should say is sharp, and also more affordable? Well, that's a challenge that requires some new materials, a new design architecture, as well as some new math. So how exactly does Canon plan on doing this with not only the 100 to 500mm based on the embodiments that we're seeing in this patent application, but the 200 to 600mm as well as the 150 to 600mm? I'll address the structure first. In this patent diagram, the first lens group, L1, has a positive refractive power. It stays still while zooming, while improving the sharpness and stability. The first positive lens, GP1, focuses light efficiently and keeps the rest of the lenses smaller. The second lens group, L2, corrects off-axis aberrations, especially at wide angles, and moves while zooming. And this lens group moves while zooming. The third lens group, L3, has a negative refractive power and is responsible for reducing color fringing at the edges. It can either move or stay fixed. The rear lens group, LR, includes 4 to 8 lens units depending on the lens, noted by L4 to L8. Some focus units do move in different directions to reduce focus breathing and aberrations. And lens stabilization happens at L4. Canon has also added a flare cut stop. This is added at key points to reduce ghosting and improve contrast. Okay, so it doesn't sound too complex, right? Okay, are you ready? Because now it's time to get into the math, which is, well, how should we say, a little bit complex. There's an awful lot of math when it comes to designing lenses, and graphs like these showing how a lens performs from up close to infinity, Canon doesn't guess the placement. They use precise math to set the best distance and the curvature between lens elements. These are just a few of the formulas behind this patent to enable a long zoom lens that's also small, light, sharp, and affordable. The first formula makes sure that the front and second lens groups balance each other out to clear focus. The second formula, there's a bit of magic going on here. This keeps the lenses from getting either too long or too heavy when they're zoomed in all the way. The lens embodiments also include aspherical lenses to reduce distortion, fluorine coating for both water and oil resistance, and they add a multi-layer anti-reflection coating to cut down on glare. At the beginning of this video, I asked this question: is Canon working on a more affordable version of the RF 100 to 500 millimeter, coming out with a new RF 200 to 600 millimeter, or the RF 150 to 600 millimeter f4.5 to 7.1? And the simple answer is yes. The patent application shows 8 different lens embodiments, but most of these are variants of each other. Notice how the zoom range starts at 185, 204, 125, or 154, and these go all the way up on the zoomed in side to 485, 585, or 682. And this is exactly what we find in this patent application and most patent applications. What you actually see are the actual measurements, not what you see when you purchase a lens. So for example, the 50mm f1.4, well, it actually isn't 50 millimeters. It's actually more like 47 millimeters. To guess at the marketing number, we usually round up or round down. And this gives us 3 lens embodiments. The RF 200 to 600 millimeter f4.5 to 7.1. The RF 150 to 600 millimeter f4.5 to 6.7. And the RF 100 to 500 millimeter f4.5 to 6.7. Well, actually somewhere between 6.7 and 8. And on the fast side, and if we take a look at a lot of Canon's lenses over the years, even going back to the EF platform, I think it's pretty safe to say that all of these lenses are going to start at around f4.5. Remember, these are not L series lenses. These are more affordable lenses. They're lightweight, better for travel. So getting them to start at f4.5 certainly makes sense. Now, in terms of at the slower end of the aperture range, at least on the starting out side, we're seeing anywhere from, again, f4.5 opening up all the way up to 6.7 or all the way up to 8, depending on the lens. And this isn't too far off really what we're seeing with the 100 to 500 millimeter or even the 200 to 800 millimeter. It seems like Canon isn't, based on these patent applications, really making us go pretty slow, at least in the aperture, not down to f9 or f10 or f11. And I really wouldn't expect them to. Now, in terms of sharpness, is it going to be as sharp as, for example, the 100 to 500 millimeter f 4.5 to 7.1? No, it's not an L series. Now, will it be weather sealed? Well, it's going to have, every lens that Canon makes has some sort of sealing, okay? If you're out and you get a little bit of water on things, you're probably going to be okay. Now, if you're in a downpour, even the 100 to 500 millimeter could have water ingress. They're just better at sealing from the elements. If you're going to be out shooting in, let's say, a football game and it's supposed to rain all day long, well, then you probably want to have some rain gear. And I've had this conversation on this channel before. People say to me, no, that's why I buy L series, so I don't have to worry about that. Well, all you have to do is take a look at an NFL Sunday game where you see all the photographers lined up, and guess what they're wearing? They're wearing these plastic raincoats, and then over top of their camera gear, they've also got some sort of raincoat, toga, or something that covers their gear. I've actually got one right over there. I'm looking at it right now that I use, or I used when I went to Niagara Falls, because boy, do you get a lot of water coming off the Maid of the Mist and the hornblower. Now, in that case, I used it for a little bit, then I took it off because for video, it makes an awful lot of noise. And with all that water coming down, with the 100 to 500 millimeter on the Canon EOS R5, the Mark I, I didn't have any water ingress. But you've always got a bit of a risk. So getting back to the 3 patent applications. So what about the 200 to 600 millimeter? Well, we already have a 100 to 400 millimeter. So that one there sounds great. And the patent application shows it as something that's possible. It's plausible that could happen. But I'm not so sure about that one. What about the 100 to 500 millimeter? Well, again, that's also very similar to the 100 to 400 millimeter. I don't really see Canon making a more affordable version of that. Now, could they go on the high end and produce something even better? No, I don't think so, because I think what happens is as you start to improve upon the quality, you have certain restrictions. And if anything, if we look at the 100 to 500 millimeter and ask ourselves the question, what lens in Canon's current lineup would be, well, an improved, faster version of that? And the simple answer is the RF 100 to 300 millimeter f2.8. But at around $10,000, that's going to set you back quite far compared to, what, $26,000 26, 2700 for the 100 to 500 millimeter. And that leaves us with one lens in this lineup that is the most appealing of all of them. And that's the embodiment for the 150 to 600 millimeter. The Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter is an f5 to 6.3. It's a DG-DN-OS sports lens, and it's $14.99, though it's not as fast as the Canon f5 at the widest versus f4.5. And at 600 millimeters, the Sigma will do f6.3. Now, what about the Canon? Again, based on the patent application, I'm reading anywhere from f6.7 to 8, but it could actually be f6.3, because remember, you can round up or you can round down. So let's just say the Canon patent application shows an f4.5 to 6.3. Now, depending on the price, that could really take away from Sigma. I know, Ryan, I'm thinking the exact same thing. If Canon did that and did it for the same price or a lower price, that would be a big deal. I'd be really excited by that, and maybe you would too, and maybe everybody would. But at this point, what people are looking forward to is not just what Canon's going to come out with, but opening up the competition in this space. And I think the way the market is right now, doing that is a good thing. Canon's coming out with an awful lot of really good patent applications and an awful lot of good products. The patent applications indicate what they've researched. It doesn't mean we're going to see them come to market, but based on what I've seen with previous patent applications, we usually end up seeing at least one of the lens embodiments. And in this lineup, I think the 150 to 600 millimeter is the most likely. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. But what we really need to see is Canon to open up the RF mount to companies like Sigma. Now, they've already produced 6 APS-C lenses for the RF mount, or to be more precise, the RFS mount. But to see Sigma release their versions of the 150 to 600 millimeter for the RF mount, the 35 millimeter f1.4, the 20, the 50, the 85, I'm pretty excited by that. Now, I know Tamron is working on another lens for the RF mount, and I'll cover that in a later video, but Canon's irritated a lot of people because, and this is on us really, but when Canon came up with the new R system, a lot of us were excited, expecting we'd see Sigma and Tamron, and we waited year after year. And Canon really wasn't very clear. They were very nebulous when it came to explaining what their purpose, what their intentions were, and most times leading us to believe that something was coming. But it never really did, and that really annoyed a lot of people. It's like they were being teased and led along, being told a half-truth, and they were. It was a half-truth. I looked at some of the things that Canon said in Japan at CB+, and yeah, I would say that's a half-truth. And a half-truth is when you tell us some of the information, but you leave out some of the other information. And that information that's left out, well, it changes what our interpretation of what is being said. I love Canon L series. That's pretty much all I buy, but I also understand that for the entry level and the mid-market, a market that Canon didn't serve very well with the EF mount, I don't see why they're holding off. They've already got a pretty good lens lineup for the RF mount for L series according to Canon themselves. And what we can start to expect to see in 2025 and beyond is version 2 of certain lenses, like the RF 50mm f1.2. Although I really do love that f1.4 VCM. I like it more than the 50mm f1.2, but that's just me. I'm not a portrait photographer. I use it as a run and gun lens. I use it for a lot of things, and I just find that 50mm focal length just works really, really well. Anyhow, guys, I want to thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for watching this video to the very end. It's very much appreciated. If you are looking at purchasing any camera gear at B&H, Adorama, or Amazon.com in the next little while, please do me a favor. A simple favor. Use my affiliate links down below because they are literally what helps support this channel. I don't do sponsorships. I just don't like them. I've never seen one that really works for the viewer. And I believe that I can make enough through affiliate links. So if you have the opportunity and use those links, thank you very much. Thank you for everybody that's used them in the past. It's very much appreciated. And you might also want to take a look at the behind the scenes new membership level, the Insider. And it starts at $9.99 a month, and that's where I put out weekly videos behind the scenes, and I also do live streams, private live streams. And I've started something a little bit new recently. As part of these live streams, I invite you to join me, and we can have an open private live stream. And if you really like that experience, well, you can be invited to one of the big announcements where we do that big live stream to the public. So lots of fun stuff. I'm trying to provide, for those of you, the 1% of the 1% that really want to know as much as you can about what goes on behind the scenes. That's who that membership level is for. You just have to click on that join button. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you again soon.